We are now on Season 2 of Tales from the Darkside. This is Episode 1, and it's called The Impressionist. And already from the opening scene, we can see that the production values have gotten a bit of a bump. In the first season, we would never see a comedy club like this that's actually filled with about 30 extras. They keep the cast to about 3 or 4 at the most. But here, we already have like 40 people. Awesome. So the main character is this guy named Spiffy Ramon, who's a comedian. And while I don't really understand his jokes at all, he gives like a 3-minute set, the crowd seems to enjoy it.
Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to practice the violin while the other kids practiced playing football. I can kick a violin further.
And he goes back to his dressing room and is arguing with the club promoter, and they're telling him he needs some new material. It looked like he was killing out there. People seem to be enjoying it. But the promoter wants him to do new stuff. His act seemed a little dated. I certainly thought it was dated as well, but maybe it was supposed to be a bad comedy act. I can't really tell. He does do a Charlie Chaplin impression, which in '85 would still have been dated. Charlie Chaplin died in 1977, and most of his best-known works were from the 20s and 30s, and even the 10s, the 1910s. While backstage at his comedy club, arguing with the owner, he gets a visit from a mysterious man who gives him an offer to come to a secret military base as they have something they need his help with. This comedian, this impressionist. He gets to the military base and he finds that they're holding an alien, and this is what the alien looks like. I said earlier the production values of this episode are much better, and they are. The acting is much better too. They took more time with this one. There's more dynamic camera shots. But this is the alien, and this is what it looks like, and I think this is pretty inexcusable. Twilight Zone, Outer Limits in the 60s had much better looking aliens, and it seems like it's trying to harken back to those type, but it does such a bad job, and it's so goofy. In an episode that up until this point is played somewhat seriously. He makes some jokes at the beginning, but everyone's taking this very seriously. They're not necessarily hamming it up. You're supposed to really believe this is a secret government facility, and they need this impressionist to communicate with the alien. This is a huge demerit to this episode. The alien moves around unrealistically, silly, and not really in a funny way, and it just looks absolutely terrible. I don't know how you get such a big bump in production, 2 to 3 times the budget, and this is what you come up with. It's like they built this alien for a much more goofy episode or for a much smaller budget episode. I don't know what happened here, but I think it looks absolutely terrible. And I do wonder, George A. Romero was the creator of this series, and so far this is the 3rd episode to be Tales from the Goof Side, to be a, I guess you could say, comedy episode. Because from this point forward, his interactions with this alien are just absolutely ridiculous, and not in a funny way, but just in a pounding your head, rolling your eyes way.
Can't we communicate anymore? Please. Please say something.
And I do wonder, would George A. Romero really like episodes like this? And the last 2 we covered, False Prophet and Grandma's Last Wish. Like, does he watch these episodes and go, yeah, this is exactly what I want? For a director who has pretty serious movies, there's some funny parts in Dawn of the Dead, but no one would say that George A. Romero is a comedy horror director. He is not Sam Raimi. Even John Carpenter had some comedy horror movies. George A. Romero is pretty serious and takes his zombie movies and other movies like The Crazies very seriously. So does he really like this stuff? I actually looked up to see what George A. Romero's favorite movies were, and I wasn't very surprised by the result. It was basically the movies he grew up with, almost all exclusively movies from the 50s. He released Night of the Living Dead in 1967, so this is the movies that inspired him. It makes complete sense that he would choose these mostly thriller movies as his favorite. Kubrick, Hitchcock, and Orson Welles, with even a nod to Repulsion, which I think is one of the best horror movies too. So if this is the type of movies that he likes, very high quality, either drama, thriller, horror movies, I really don't think he would like episodes like this. They should have paid to make him watch stuff like this and just see his reaction. But anyways, this is not the worst episode so far, but it's just, for one that had a potential and I think kind of an intriguing concept, seeing the alien just, I think, craters it. They explain that the alien is not going to be able to survive much longer in the Earth environment and is going to have to go back in his spaceship. But he holds the secrets for nuclear fusion, a type of power source that would really, really be helpful. In fact, even now, we still haven't exactly been able to use nuclear fusion, though there have been some breakthroughs recently, so who knows.
Major breakthrough in 2022. In December 2022, scientists at the U.S. National Ignition Facility in Livermore, California, achieved a major breakthrough in nuclear fusion research. Energy gain. Energy gain, also known in this context as ignition, means that they were able to create a fusion reaction that released more energy than they put in by their lab's gigantic high-powered lasers. The scientists said they proved nuclear fusion can work on Earth, but we are still many years from being able to use it in power plants. Yet, scientists are optimistic that controlled fusion power will be achieved. The rewards are great, an unlimited source of clean energy.
So, for the rest of the episode, Spiffy Ramon tries to communicate with this alien, and it basically doesn't work. We just get scene and scene of him failing, doing this weird alien move. I can't tell if this is supposed to be played for laughs or not. And that's about it. He tries and tries and tries. They're about to pull him, and then finally he communicates in some way, but we're not exactly sure what is said. It's very brief, and the alien goes up into his spaceship. It would have been more interesting if we actually had him communicate and they could actually talk to each other. The alien could tell him why he's here. They also just dropped the nuclear fusion thing. That seemed like kind of a cool element that the government was trying to get out of him, and a little smarter than what you would expect. But they just kind of dropped that whole thing, and we never hear about that again. So even when he gets to communicate with the alien, it seems like the government doesn't get anything from it. And we never really learn anything about the alien or its personality or anything. It's actually similar to the problem I had with the episode of Glim-Glim in Monsters that I covered previously in the Monsters series, where the alien looked really goofy. Here's what Glim-Glim looks like. It looks kind of ridiculous. But Glim-Glim actually had a personality. The first time I saw it, I kind of laughed. Then the alien actually developed a personality, started communicating with this girl, was telling him what he wanted, and you realize that this is actually a friendly alien that wants to actually help the human race.
It is only a matter of time, but time is short. Their armies might find a means to pierce the force field before I am finished. Fortunately, the survivors cannot escape this village. I threw the force field up in time to contain all the inhabitants. So I must keep searching.
Hey, this is working great. You keep pointing and I'll keep writing. Okay. So far we've got that you're from Orion, that the sickness was an accident, and you need our help to make a medicine to save everybody else. But what can we do? B-L-O-O.
You're all right?
I just plugged it in. Glim-Glim made it to show us he's our friend.
It's the 24th. Christmas Eve. With all that's happened, we forgot.
Daddy, where's my friend Glim-Glim? Daddy, please tell me you didn't hurt him. Daddy, you didn't hurt my friend Glim-Glim, did you?
So despite the fact that it looks kind of silly, once you actually develop a personality and a rapport, you can actually overlook the silly costume in something like Glim-Glim. That's not what happens in The Impressionist. We give no indication of the personality or what they want, or really anything interesting. Just scene after scene of him moving around, looking weird, trying to communicate and failing, and then finally succeeding, but it happening in a split second. And we don't even know what he said. And then we get the ending, which is, I think, pretty good, where the aliens welcome them into his spaceship. This is a Close Encounters of the Third Kind. And again, we see that the budget in this episode is much better. Despite the fact that we don't get to see the spaceship, it's just a bunch of lights, or at least in an outdoor location where he's walking towards the spaceship. I know this might not seem like a big deal, but after season 1, this actually kind of is a big deal. So, The Impressionist is going to get a 4 out of 10. I don't think it's really a great way to start off the second season. We do see some improvements from the first season, as I mentioned, with the budget and the acting, and even the script itself is not bad. Like, I can imagine the script is actually pretty good. It's just they really failed on the alien design and not adding in more elements of them actually communicating like they did with Glim-Glim. They should go in the future a couple years and watch Glim-Glim and then realize that's how you do a episode where the alien looks goofy. Maybe the prop department screwed up and you go, oops, this is all we got to work with. Okay, we're gonna make the best we can out of this. Chuck McCannon played the main character, Spiffy, and there were hints that he was a funny comedian. I hadn't really heard of him before, but he actually was pretty popular. He seemed to have a pretty good run in the 70s where he was starring in many television shows, like All That Glitters, Starsky and Hutch, Rockford Files, and then later in life he did a lot of voices for video games and cartoons, like Garfield, Powerpuff Girls, even doing voices in the Spider-Man 3 video game. He tragically died in 2018, but he lived a pretty long life, 83. Alright, next up we have a good episode, Life Bomb, about a salesman who sells a very interesting device that will make it so that you can't die. The special effects in this episode are kind of hilarious, and I actually think we're back on track to having, after 3 pretty bad episodes, The Impressionist being the best of the 3, we're back on track to having an actual good episode. And check out our playlist for all the Monsters episodes, Fear Itself episodes, and all of Season 1.